Good morning. Today we look at Hosea 9 through 11. And these chapters, again, are bad news for Israel. I mean, it just seems to be that that's what these prophets have, is a lot of bad news for Israel. But also, always within that is that glimmer of hope, that promise of God's faithfulness. So in these chapters, I mean, we see God speaking to Israel and telling them that the punishment that they're going to undergo because of their unfaithfulness will lead to the destruction of cities, the breaking up of families, the death of children, the captivity again of the people. Their places of worship will be destroyed, knocked down, and maybe not only the places of worship of God, but basically the pagan worships places as well. Verse 9 or chapter 9 starts, "Do not rejoice, O Israel, do not exult as other nations do, for you have been unfaithful." You have departed from God. You have loved a prostitute's prey, and you're cheating on God. And you think about that. I mean, he talks about playing the part of a prostitute or a whore and being unfaithful. And this is what we are when we worship other gods. And I mean, we have things that we often put ahead of God, and it's hard. I mean, it's God's first commandment: "I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods." I mean, that's really difficult. I mean, and this is what the people of Israel, they kept looking at other nations and they kept looking at other things, and well, here's a God we can see, and it all seemed so good to them. But they forgot who God was, and God looked upon these Israelites, as I'm sure he looks upon an awful lot of people today, as that they are cheating on him. They're worshiping someone or something other than God. And maybe that's a different way to look at it, that we're cheating on God. And nobody likes a cheat, and it's just the way it is. And I understand especially why God wouldn't like it when we cheat and we worship other things. Verse 7 of chapter 9, "The days of punishment have come. The days of recompense have come. Israel cries, the prophet is a fool. The man of the spirit is mad." But it isn't the words of the prophet that are foolish. It's the actions of the people. It's that they follow these other lands and these other nations that way. Verse 9, "They have deeply corrupted themselves, as in the days of Gilboa, and he will remember their iniquity. He will punish their sins." And it goes on. And then verse 10, "Like grapes in the wilderness, I found Israel." I mean, to think of finding grapes in the wilderness, I mean, you would be happy. Here you are in the wilderness, place of, really not very much, the place of not being safe, and you find grapes. I would think that would be, good. Like the first fruits on the fig tree. I saw your ancestors, and it was good, and God chose these Israelites. But then it goes to pot. Verse 12, "Even if they bring up children, I will bereave them until no one is left. Woe to them when I depart from them." And think about being abandoned by God. I mean, and this is. The Israelites had sinned so much that they felt abandoned by God. And God, basically was, saying to them through the prophets, "I'm not going to protect you. I'm not going to guard you." And this is, other nations came in and destroyed them. Other nations came in and conquered them. Verse 15 of chapter 9, "Because of the wickedness of their deeds, I will drive them out of my house. I will love them no more." Wow, "I will love them no more. All of their officials are rebels." Horrible news from God. "I will love you no more." I mean, rather than "I will love you forever. I take you to be my people, and I will be your God, and I will provide for you. I will love you forever." I will love you no more, he says here through the prophet. It's just horrible words to hear. In chapter 10, Israel is a luxuriant vine that yields its fruit. The more his fruit increased, the more altars he built. As the country improved, he improved his pillars. The heart is false. And in their time of well-being, in their time of, having plenty of their lands producing, and, they wanted more, as prosperity comes, and that's, we always want just a little bit more. If we had just a little bit more, we'd be happy. Well, it's kind of like when we sit down at the table and, this really tastes good. And it's something we really like. And then you take that little bit more and all of a sudden it's, too much. And then our systems are kind of, from that, so sometimes that little bit more is a little bit too much, a little bit more than we really need or want that way. But, they desired more, and this is, we live in a country of great prosperity. I mean, we really, truly do. And, I think about, in the olden days, when it was the good old days, we didn't have people that had 3, 4, 5 vehicles and would take extensive, long, lengthy trips or be gone all winter, have a second house someplace. I mean, these things were for the exclusive rich, but, now, I mean, we have affluence in our communities. Granted, there are some people still that don't have much, that, are dependent upon, food pantries and all of those things as well. But, overall, we live in a land of prosperity, and it's having that little bit more. And not to say there's anything wrong with having things, and not to say anything wrong with being prosperous, but if it clouds our judgment, if it gets in the way of our relationship with God and with other people, then we have a problem. But, the Israelites, kept falling away from God. Verse 3, they say, we have no king. We do not fear the Lord. And the king, what could he do for us, They're not looking to God for their leadership, for guidance, for giving him thanks or any of that. He's just whatever, they don't pay any attention. In verse 12 of chapter 10, sow for yourselves righteousness, reap steadfast love, for it is time to seek the Lord, that he may come and rain righteousness upon you. So here's the word from the prophet, from God, through the prophet, maybe I should say, to the people. Seek the Lord. It's time to seek the Lord, that he may come again with righteousness for you. And then chapter 11 begins with, when Israel was a child, I loved him. Out of Egypt I called my son. And sometimes they refer to this verse as a promise of the Savior. Out of Egypt I called my son. Well, when Joseph and Mary had this baby Jesus, and the king was going to kill all of the ones under 2 years old, as in Matthew's gospel, so Joseph and Mary fled to Egypt. And when the king had died, they were called back out of Egypt. So this is a way of a reference to the Savior, but also a reminder that God calls his people, save them out of this captivity and slavery in Egypt. Verse 9, here's some promise. I will not execute my fierce anger. I will not again destroy Ephraim, for I am God, not a mortal. I am the Holy One in your midst, and I will not come in wrath. And then the verse 10 and 11, they will go after the Lord, who roars like a lion. And when he roars, his children shall come trembling from the west. They will come trembling. I mean, I don't want to tremble before God. I want to come to God thinking of him as a loving father, as one that no matter what's going on in my life, I can come, share my concerns, share my heartaches, and I will find love and support. This is the God that I love. This is the God that I worship. Not a God I have to come trembling before saying, no, I have no fear of God. I don't come trembling before God. I come to God gratefully with a sure confidence of his grace and of his love. And it's, it's just, this, I just read verse 9. I got to turn back a page again. I will not execute my fierce anger against them. I will not destroy them, for I am God. This is the God that I know and love, a God of grace and glory.